Hello, everyone. I am Adam Dunstan, and this is Anthropology A101, Introduction to Anthropology, a course that looks at the prehistory and present day societies, cultures of humanity that asks fundamental questions like what does it mean to be a human? How did our bodies come to be the way they are? How do our cultures work and bring complexity and meaning and sometimes conflict into our lives? How has humanity shifted over the many millennia of its existence? All sorts of, I think, fascinating and interesting questions. And as I said on Blackboard, I really think this class has something for each and every one of you, that it has the power to not just be some one-off GR that you take on the way to getting into your real job, but that it is something that will help you with the also very real job of interacting with human beings and being a human being, right? Something that most of us do every single day in our work. We live in a complex, diverse world, and anthropology prepares us and gives us additional tools to better understand that world, whether we're 8 years old or 80 years old. So I hope you enjoy the course, and I hope you find it thought enriching and also sometimes thought challenging. And if there's anything I can do for you to make the course better, please let me know. But the point of this video is not only to welcome you to the class, it is also to show you a couple of things structurally about the class itself. The first thing I want to do is I want to make a few notes on the syllabus. And in doing so, I acknowledge that syllabus review is one of the most boring topics on earth to about 90% of human beings, but it doesn't mean that it's not relevant. Reading your syllabus is a little bit like reading, or at least scanning, the instructions before you start building an appliance. You're going to save yourself some time and headache, as I recently discovered with the door project. You're going to save yourself some time and headache if you do your reading ahead of time. So a little bit about the syllabus. Read through it this week. Make sure you understand all of what it says. I'm going to take out a few highlights. First one, I'm an anthropologist, as mentioned. Some of my qualifications include that I've been doing anthropology for 15 years. I do research mainly in Native American as well as Alaska Native communities, but I do work in other communities as well, such as religious tourists or North Texans, perceptions of air quality, just a lot of different things. But I'm a professor. I'm out of Kenai Peninsula College. I'm also affiliated and part of the Department of Anthropology up in Anchorage. My office hours are Wednesday, 3 to 4 p.m., but that doesn't mean that's the only time I can meet. I understand that for a lot of you, that would be in the middle of your workday or something like that. So if you want to meet another time, I'm pretty flexible over the summer. Just please reach out by email if that time doesn't work. And I love to meet with people, whether that's to answer a question about the class or you just want to discuss an idea that you had that's related to anthropology or ask about career options in anthropology. Okay. This link, if you click on it, will take you to a Zoom link, which is how I do my office hours over the summer. If you are local and you want to meet in person, I do have my office at KPC, and I'm happy to meet with you in person. But usually people are off cavorting around in the forest or something during the summer, having fun or providing for themselves. And so usually people don't want to meet in summer in person. But if you want to, just shoot me an email, let me know, and I can make sure to be actually in my literal office on the office hours day. But otherwise, let's just plan on meeting through Zoom, and it's at this time or by appointment. All right, the structure of the course. As you noticed, this course is all online. It's through Blackboard. It runs on a week-to-week schedule with 5 weeks, each being from Sunday to Saturday. The one exception to that is this first week where we started on Thursday yesterday, or I guess it was Wednesday, 2 days ago. Well, sorry, I'm mixed up on my days. Today's Saturday. Okay, it started on Thursday 2 days ago, and it extends through Saturday. But that first week's an exception where we have 10 days. Every other week is a normal 7-day week, and it starts on Sunday and it goes to Saturday. And what I mean by that is that the content will be available for sure by that Sunday, usually before, but most of the content, or a lot of the content's actually already up, but the content will be up by Sunday, and you will have whatever it is that's due, whether that's a test or an assignment, That'll be due by Saturday, okay, of that week. Each week contains 3 things. The first thing that it contains is lecture videos to watch. Usually these will be split up to, let's say, 5 or 6 chunks, and it'll be kind of, 1 to 2 hours kind of deal, usually. So the class does not have, we don't have like a set time that we all meet together. Instead, we have these pre-recorded lecture videos. So just, listen to them while you're off fishing or something. The second thing is readings. You can do these before or after the lecture video. I think for me, if I was taking this class, I would do the lecture videos first and then the readings, but either order is fine. Sometimes lectures do make reference to the readings sometimes, but there will be readings. On that note, there's no textbook. All of the readings are online through Blackboard. Most of them are pretty easy to print off if you prefer hard copy, which actually I often prefer hard copy. But the advantage of having it be online is that nobody has to spend money for a textbook, and it's all available on the first day of class, or at least the first day of the week that you're reading it. We don't have to worry about them, sort of shipping delays from the lower 48 or something. So you've got your lecture videos. Those will be by yours truly. I try to make them interesting and fun. I hope I succeed. There are readings that will enrich, expand upon what we're talking about. And then there will also be an assignment and or a test due by Saturday at midnight. Okay. Since this class is pre-recorded lecture videos, you might ask what I'll be up to. One, of course, is grading, and I try to give really good feedback. So make sure that you're looking at the feedback, because I often give you, some good written feedback. But the other things is that I'll obviously be posting announcements, giving class level feedback, optional office hours, etc. The basic breakdown of the course is that tests are 50% of your grades, and assignments are 50% of your grades. There are 4 tests, there are 4 assignments, there are 4 units. So basically 1 test per unit. A unit is like a big overarching topic. So there's 4 tests for the 4 units, so 4 tests overall, and they're worth about 50% of your grade. The assignments too are worth 50% of your grade total, and there are 4 of them. What that all means, among other things, is that any given thing, like a test or like an assignment, is worth 12.5% of your grade. So just if you're doing sort of triage with your own time and wanting to skip certain things because you're okay with getting a B or something like that, just be aware that each thing you skip is 12% of your grade, right? So if I was to skip 1 assignment, the highest I can get is a B+ in the class. Makes sense? Okay. The tests, by the way, they're open Blackboard, and I want to be very clear what I mean. You can use the lectures online on Blackboard, and you can use the readings on Blackboard. You can't use anything else. Please do not Google, ChatGPT, any of that stuff, okay? Don't work with each other. It is solely a test of your individual knowledge, okay? Some of the things that we'll be going over in this course, this is kind of saying it in complex wording, but basically this first one is saying that we'll be learning about, there was an error in that, so I'll need to fix that in the syllabus and repost. In any case, the course schedule is as follows. This is on the last 2 pages, and it kind of shows you the structure of what we'll be learning about each week. This first week, which is again a 10-day week, it's kind of weird, is titled Human Nature, and it's kind of a grab bag of topics that in one way or another provide a good foundation for the course as a whole and for understanding anthropology. So for example, we have a lecture in there on basically what is anthropology, a lecture in there on what are called the 4 fields of anthropology, because anthropologists do wildly different things depending on what that is. There's a thing in there on culture, which is just this incredibly important foundational concept in anthropology. And you might say, well, of course I know what culture is. Everybody knows what culture is, but anthropologists mean some very specific things by that term. So talking about that. And module 4 might kind of seem like an outlier. It's this module about race, but it's not only about race, as incredibly important of a topic as that is, but it's more about 3 big topics that kind of set a tone for the rest of the course. one of which is human genetics and how do human genetics work, because there's sometimes a lot of misconceptions about that. Number two is sort of how anthropologists do their work and how that often helps us better understand common misunderstandings about humanity, right? So people often assume one thing about how human bodies work. Anthropology and biology kind of show us a different story. And then also that module is a good way of understanding the idea of the power of culture in shaping how we view things, right? You're in one country and race is understood one way. You go down to Brazil, race is understood a very different way. You go to any number of other countries across the world, and there will be still other understandings of race. A lot of overlap, but also some big differences. And so it's a good way of kind of thinking about what we sometimes call social construction, but basically how culture can shape how we view reality, which I think we all sense, but it's a really good explanation of it. The weeks, this first week, you've got assignment one due, which is basically introducing yourself and setting goals, which is so important. Setting goals, getting some ownership of what you want out of the class. So it's not a waste of your time. People learn better when they've set their own goals, period. And then also test one. Then you have I was talking to my kiddo. All right. Yes. Okay. All right, buddy. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, so both of my kids were talking to me for a minute. I was talking to them, so now I'm back. Um, Probably some of you have kids as well. They're amazing, absolutely amazing. I love having kids. So unit two is origins, and so we spent a couple of weeks talking about the development and evolution of the hominin tree, as well as archaeological progress over, not progress, that's the wrong word, archaeological developments over time, how ancient humans shifted and what kinds of tools they use, as well as huge major shifts like the rise of agriculture, which whether or not you were a culture that was a hunting culture or farming culture or something else, the fact that some of the cultures took that up on affected everything else, because that led to things like the rise of huge empire-based, city-based empires and stuff like that. So that kind of affected everybody in one way or another eventually. And so that's kind of where we're going in the first several weeks, is kind of this historical look. It's a lot of what we call biological anthropology and a lot of archaeology. The unit after that, unit three, relationships, we then get into several ways in which human beings are interacting with each other socially. It's a lot of cultural anthropology, so kind of like present day cultures and linguistic anthropology, but also some, again, archaeology, some of this sort of like looking towards the past as well. And so we'll have topics like how people make stuff and share stuff and what that says about us as human beings, right? Are we all greedy jerks that ruin everything? A module on politics and power that's not about that's not a module about like Republican and Democrat or Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, Green or something like that. Instead, it's a module about politics in a bigger sense, in a much broader sense of sort of like how do humans organize power in their societies? How is it that some people get a lot of power in a society, some people get very little, or how is it that in some societies there's really sharp differences in power, in some societies relatively few? How does all of that come about? How does that work? And in societies that do have relatively few power differences, how is it that the society doesn't just sort of devolve into chaos, right? How is it that some cultures don't have anything resembling, or at least didn't until recently have anything resembling written laws or police force, but they still mostly figure out how to socially cooperate? Like, how does that work? What does that look like? What are the forms of social control, as we call them? A module on kinship and family and marriage, basically looking at the huge number of ways, the huge commonalities across cultures and how people build families, but also the huge differences as well. And then the final unit, unit four, webs of meaning, We'll talk about a variety of ways in which people understand the world through culture. Things like language, which is huge. Things like religions, which whether or not, obviously not all people are religious, but all societies have developed religion at one point or another. And then finally, we will talk about applying anthropology, which is basically sort of some of the very practical uses of anthropology, both how anthropologists use it to do things like fight disease or help people have a more positive experience with technology, or help people to have a better experience with their physical environment and figure out, how can everybody get their physical needs met while also making sure it's a healthy environment for everybody. And what does that mean? So those kind of very applied anthropology, but also just how does somebody in some other field, like let's say you're in petroleum engineering, or let's say you're in nursing, or let's say you're in English lit, how can anthropology be applicable to other jobs too? So that's the note we end on. That's it for the syllabus. If you click on this link at the end, you'll have a bunch of other KPC policies that you can look through. A lot of those are not relevant because this is not an in-person class, but some of them are. So you can look at that. And that's it. So I thank you very much for your time. And I hope that you have a really good experience in this class. I really love teaching, and if there's anything I can do to make it better for you, I take this class very seriously. You can probably take it seriously because I'm even wearing a necktie today. So if you have any questions or any suggestions, please do reach out, okay? Talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.